What I've been mentioning are factors, areas of practice that you can read about, think about, consider about, form your own conclusions about. So I'm just asking or suggesting you bring these to the fore of your consideration. And obviously I have my own ways of seeing things, and these may be useful, or you may find them not useful. We may in fact disagree, which is all good. You know, if you can help me point out where I'm getting it wrong, that would be my benefit. So these are just kind of things to say, please cast your light on this, because these are seminal, crucial areas of practice throughout the centuries, really, tradition. And concentration or samadhi, the Pali word, is a big one. So I'm certainly not going to cover it all in one shot. But we can, I think the problem I have, quite a few of us have with the word concentration, is it's too limited. And it seems to imply focusing on a particular point, and that's it, you know, focus on a particular sensation or something, or an image. That's it, that's concentration, which I wouldn't really support that as being all of what it encompasses, or even necessarily a very skillful thing to do. Because when you look in the whole context, the samadhi is part of a process, and one mustn't ignore the rest of the process. In fact, if you do ignore the rest of the process, you're liable to come to some difficult experiences, which people do. People go slightly dissociate or have experiences the chittas can't manage through trying to force concentration on a particular point. Because it puts quite a lot of pressure on the chitta. The chitta isn't properly prepared, softened, coaxed, ripened, then you're really putting a lot of pressure on a aspect that isn't capable of receiving it. And things can get split there or distorted. Well, because it's such a key term, and in fact people get quite enthusiastic about it, because the ideal mystical experience, you know, drop into something, woo, out there, and I want to have a mystical experience. And this is really not a good attitude to have. Or in some, perhaps not very conscious way, how to get away from myself. Get away from this nattering idiot in my head, or my emotional imbalances, or the rest of the world, you know. And I can sympathise with that, but it isn't really the path. So we look at samadhi in terms of path, we see some very, perhaps not so interesting details, right view, right attitude, right approach, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and then right concentration. And then you can think, that's it. That's the star prize. That's the star point. That's the end of it's that. Well, let's skip the rest of it and get to that. You know, or maybe a bit of mindfulness. This right speech stuff is, best not to talk at all. Then we'll be fine. So we can kind of cut off, because we think number 8 must be the high point. No, it's saying that this is a process to go through. And actually, in other instances, the Buddha talked about a tenfold path. We have right samadhi, then right release, and right knowledge and vision of release. So it comes into something else, which is further. And in no way did the Buddha ever consider samadhi to be the end point of the practice, but a part of the flow of practice. And so I keep mentioning this, or referring to this kind of rather watery aspect, but as a flow, a stream. And the Buddha said, when you teach, you should teach step by step. It's not a one thing, it's this leads to that, this leads to that. If you do this, this will ripen into that. It's a step by step teaching, pada. And that's the way you should present it. Yeah. So, of course, this term does crop up in many instances. First, I mentioned the eightfold or the tenfold path. But actually, that's a good map in some ways, a good map of. But in terms of practice guide, like when you sit down, you don't start practicing right speech, right livelihood. Then you're already doing that, hopefully. And what is the aim of that? Is to continue to bring wholesome factors to your citta and to keep weeding out unwholesome factors and to keep resolved and resolute on those wholesome factors, to discern them, to trust them, to get benefit from truthfulness, straightness, avoiding prevarication, avoiding deception, avoiding manipulation, avoiding, the things that can come one's way in life, particularly the speech area. Flippant, disrespectful, is mild compared with the abusive, lying and deceit, and either commercially based or politically based that we see in the world around us. You pick up these habits, or you can do, from social media, and things that are not said. Nobody talks about faith and equanimity in the newspapers. Nobody talks about gladdening the mind in the newspapers. So these things drop out of our parlance. We don't even think about them. Gladdening the mind, or showing respect, or cultivating empathy. These are kind of. So we're trying to actually bring these to fore in our practice, in our life, and in our way of living, not just to talk it, but to do it. So you're not just mouthing the words, but really getting a feeling for how that plays out. And when you have a community doing just that, you're getting a strong input of these kind of tones and meanings and reference points. And all this is a contribution, which one should be eager to take in. And so all this is the rooting, the ground, the soil, or to use the stream metaphor, this is the source of the stream. Chandamulaka, sabbe dhamma, all dhammas are rooted in interest. What are you interested in, when your desire, where your inclinations go. Yeah? So you start off on that. Dhamma inclinations in terms of purity, right view, straightforward, compassion, clarity, non-distractedness. Keep doing it. Keep going to the source, Chandamulaka. Manasikara sambhava, sabbe dhamma, all attention, all dhammas are formed, given form, come into becoming, begin to manifest through attention. What you give attention to. How you attend. If your attention is fitful, or it's scattered, it's not going to be any good. If you attend to unskillful things, you absorb that. Attention is the mouth of the citta. So what that mouth places itself on is what you take in. Right? Passa samudayo, and you recognize that because passa samudayo, welling up, that's only the blossoming of perceptions and feelings based upon those perceptions, or based upon that attention. This is a kind of like a hinge point, isn't it? Because the untrained citta, attention is just, okay, what's going on? It's kind of directed by what's most powerful, more painful, pleasant, scintillating, horrifying, interesting, new. And all these are kind of irrelevant. You know? Because they're so transitory and circumstantial, and they make the mind kind of lazy. We just, any old junk put in front of it, it gobbles up. It learns to just sit passive, watch the television, you know, listen to what's on the screen. I'm not saying you personally, but this is kind of the way we get inclined to just kind of just take in what's going on and have no clear and conscious and directed and disciplined attitude towards attention, you know, and be able to say, no, that's not worth attending to, or not now, you know, and so that is the discipline that is sambhava. That's what's going to come into contact. Passa samudaya. When the contact happens, passa, there's this welling up. Stuff starts. It internalizes, right? So, you know, citta is the mouth. Attention is the mouth of the mind, of the heart, citta. And as it comes in, the taste and the experience, that's contact. Suddenly you get a flush of excitement, or happiness, interest, whatever, you know. And that's extremely significant. That's the place where will becomes internalized, right? Attention, contact, that's where it becomes internalized. We call it internal. It means it begins to affect not just a matter of stuff on a screen. You feel something stirred. Your emotional senses are stirred. And your bodily senses are shocked, shivering, eased, relaxed. That's a crucial point, right? Because this is the you know, where we get the definite opportunity, time and time again, in our lives, in our daily lives, to feed upon themes that will give rise to a calming, gladdening, enriching, sobering, steadying series of perceptions, and soothing, calming, benevolent feeling. That is the topic of Samadhi. Now, if we don't do that, then what do we feed on? Willpower, ideas, craving. You know, I want to get into that mystical state. Well, you know, it's like a chicken. I want to lay eggs. Well, you're only going to lay eggs if you're going to hatch eggs if you lay the egg and sit on it. Just clucking around the yard saying I want some chicks isn't going to do it. You've got to do the breeding and the fostering and the nesting and the nurturing, then you can get the results. Yeah. So, you know, so then that kind of focusing, and it's called yoniso manasikara, is a more refined way of talking about careful attention, or deep attention, or penetrative attention, yeah, which isn't just scattering over the random surface appearances of things, which is ayoniso, superficial attention. You skate. Oh yeah. What's the average attention span of a teenager? Half a second, maybe. The next, flash, TikTok, Instagram, flish, the thing. That's not going to be yoniso. That's superficial. You know, and increasingly we're entering a social context where that kind of mode of attention is necessary to deal with the very rapid moving phenomena that can arise. So of course one is encouraging people to switch the thing off. You know, when you sit on the train, why not just focus on breathing it out rather than look at what's on your phone? So of course we don't have that. Monasteries, you know, the privilege of not having to participate in that. But still, we can get scattered because we also have been conditioned. And what we see the world, the important things as being, tend to be the immediate flash of circumstance. Who's coming, who's going. What the next thing to do is, and so forth. But actually we're looking through that realm of circumstance to deep trends. So we can see the world of circumstance. There's this person's come in, she's wearing this, she's sitting there, she looks like this. She's come to a monastery. There's a sense there as a seeker. Whether she's this or that, or looks like this, or wears that, that's kind of secondary, because at this moment, that person is a seeker of the truth, looking for refuge, daring enough to come to one of these places in the first place, and maybe even making an offering. So you see past the skin, past the clothes, into the heart. That's how you pay proper attention. You filter out what's on the surface of the stream when you look into the deep current. And you do this repeatedly. And then you find you're actually picking up these same flavors: integrity, commitment, aspiration, generosity, and also vulnerability and search. Oh yes. So it kind of, then we look at the world in this way, it does help to attune us. And of course you live in a community, you can see different characters and characteristics and skills and this. But actually looking at this is integrity, this is commitment, this is discipline, this is virtue, this is loving kindness, manifesting in another form. Deep attention. Then what you shape up are gladdening perceptions. And what's this got to do with Samadhi? Well, a lot to do with it. And the Buddha himself saying when he was reviewing his life up to then, before he was unenlightened seeker, so thinking about this and that and this and that, well, his father, mother, job, doing whatever. Didn't go into details, but obviously he's a human being. And so then, see, this is just a whirling around going nowhere. My mind became one-pointed, ekagata cittassa. And one-pointed, I established mindfulness. I established mindfulness on what's right here, right now, body, present, breathing in, breathing out. Cittassa ekagata. Now, again, ekagata means one-pointed, so if we take this word, we can think, well, that means you focus on a particular point. But it's cittassa, it's one-pointedness of heart, so it means the heart is fully resolved as one purpose, one aim in mind. Look at it that way. And you never see the Buddha encouraging anyone to focus on a particular discrete sensation. Check it out. I don't see it. In fact, his tendency was to say you want to avoid sensations because it's prickling, hot, insects. Imagine living in a forest in India. You don't really want to focus on, insects biting you or discomforts, heat, cold. Actually, you want to withdraw from sensation. And he says, oh, this is pleasant, this is benevolent, this is comfortable, something breathing in, breathing out. And if we really open up to how we know breathing in and breathing out, we feel movement, internal movement. It's not sensation happening on the skin, it's an internal movement. And there's a soothing energy to it, steadying. It's a steady, repeated, energetic flow. That's how breathing, it's a dynamic. That's what it is. He didn't say focus on the breath, for example. He said focus on breathing. So it's a dynamic fluidity. But to backtrack away, and again, this is not one instance. Another lovely occasion, which I've talked about before, was when the Buddha likened this process to how rain descends on a hillside and forms into trickles. They become streams, they become rivers, they become ocean lakes, they become an ocean. So you get a sense in which initial favourable input is gathered together, and it gradually, through that process, it increases and wells up. And it says as the little trickles, rivulets become full, they flow over and they become streams. When the streams fill up, they overflow and they become rivers. When the rivers become full, they become lakes. So you get a sense of vastness opening up. And he says this is a natural process. So it doesn't mean it's necessarily normal, because most people are not very natural in a Dhamma sense. We've got all kinds of other things happening. But if you actually follow that through, you're able to follow that through, that flow, that called the upward stream, flows, and he says it flows from this shore to the other shore. And somewhere in the middle of all that, when it elicits the factors, it starts off with virtue and a sense of self-respect and gladness at the quality of virtue. And it turns into a sense of feeling contented, and this affects the body. The body feels more relaxed. When the body's relaxed, the heart feels happy, because it's not contained in a tense, agitated, fidgety condition. And the heart is happy, collected. He said, this is Samadhi. And it said then, Samadhi then, because now things aren't so scattered and occluded, clouded over, you can see things more clearly. When you see things more clearly, you start to become disenchanted with sense pleasures, with personal projects, with identity issues, with da-da-da-da-da. And you get, how am I, who am I getting this? I mean, it becomes kind of like, why bother? And it leads on to liberation, true knowledge of conditionality, and also of the impersonal nature of conditions. And the knowledge of what isn't personal arises with the knowledge of something transpersonal. And so then there's that other shore, which is free from the trammels of circumstance and the struggles of the person. So in that process, this samadhi is a kind of one of these hinge points, but only one of them. And the process of that flows through all this is twofold. You absorb qualities and you discern. The absorbing process, Buddha reckoned it jhanati, jayati, to absorb. And so he says, when you're cultivating this to a certain degree, then the absorption becomes, the primary sense of being absorbed is when the 5 hindrances disappear. That is, the mind is rushing out towards in ill will and negativity, or towards sense pleasures, or it's bogged down in kind of lethargic states, or it's frantically worrying and fretting, or it's just going into speculative doubt. And you all know these, so you probably know them personally, but also you know them from the texts. So let's look at actually how many lights are there in samadhi. Well, no, don't bother with that, because that doesn't seem to be a seminal feature of what the Buddha referred to. It says it's comfortable and easeful, and there's a sense of happiness, but look at what you've cleared. You know, that's the really significant feature, what's got out of the way. Because then this is not just a mystical pastime, these are the really core qualities. Who wants to live with a mind of ill will? In all its various forms, resentment, bitterness, ill will towards oneself, self-hatred, putting oneself down, comparing oneself with others, judging other people. And, you know, who wants to live with that activity going on? Who wants to live constantly tethered to buy one of these, have one of those, go here, suck that, lick this, chew that? Going on all the time. You know, like, enough already. It doesn't take long, for about 20 years or so, before you begin to recognise this is how far this is going to go. Some people never seem to get it, but generally by about 25 you've done it all. And you think, okay, you can do it some more. Or you think, hang on, you know, it's in another direction towards happiness. And so the sense in which it could be, but you know, then you've got to look at not the world of sensation, but the world of the heart, intentionality, gratitude, self-respect, care for others, virtue, honesty, reliable, faithful, generous. Yeah. And these are independent of circumstances and they're free. And you can cultivate them and you can see them in others. You can see other people and stuff. You think, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow. Really, that's amazing what he did. Oh, she always does that. That's lovely. She never does, yeah. So you set your Yoniso Manasikara on that feature, and then you absorb it. So you discern, and you absorb. You discern, you filter out the superficial, or the circumstantial, or even the negative, and you try to absorb into the good. And then that's got a definite effect. Punya merit means you're drinking in a kind of a spiritual substance or a heart substance. Sounds kind of eerie, but you know, food for the heart, we call it. Goodwill lifts everybody up. And so you're drinking that in. Mm-hmm. You absorb it. And you skim off the jealousy or the I can't be as good as she can, or that kind of stuff, you know. It's not a personal judgment. And then you look at it regardless of that, when that arises in yourself. And there it gets a bit tricky, because I kind of say, well, I'm a really virtuous person. I kind of, something in me says, yeah, okay, you know, I thought you didn't do that very well, you know. You know, he could be better. He's much more virtuous, you know. No. I say, does the quality of virtue ever visit you at all? Well, I suppose so. I mean, do you constantly lie? No, sometimes I exaggerate a bit. But you're not a constant, blatant liar. Oh no. Then the quality of virtue has paid a fleeting visit to some degree. Great, focus on it. Are you a totally stingy miser? No, I wouldn't say that. Then probably the quality of sharing and generosity has visited you for a while, because you did share that with your fellow monks, you did pass it on to the nuns, you did offer that to the lay people out of a sense of, may this be for your welfare. The quality of generosity has visited you, but you didn't notice it. Now, we're not making personal statements about who's the most generous and wonderful person, but it's a great benefit that these qualities, which you can see in others, they do visit us. Yeah, and sometimes they stick around. And if you linger in them and absorb them and focus on them, they tend to stick around longer, because they they start to feed you, and you feel strengthened and focused by them. Yeah? So cultivate that. Mudita, pamoja, gladdening. Definitely a feature. And there's so many opportunities, particularly in this current situation at Cittaviveka, to feel some considerable admiration for the field of what we're in. Not to say this is the greatest, this or the other, but just there's great benefit. I see, I notice acts of restraint, acts of generosity, acts of carefulness being manifested all around me. And as I see that, it starts to keep modelling. It keeps modelling, and I keep tuning into that. So, Manasikara Sambhava, where attention lingers, it formulates. We start to find the chitta is getting shaped by that. And this is and then you absorb, which means you don't just do it or notice it, but you linger on how that touches you. Touches you, contact, pusati, contact, oh yeah. And you put that to the fore, and it's being more receptive and taking time, lingering, to take it in, and you feel the kind of dreariness or the automatic or the blurred or the fade out, and you've got something that shines, delights. Oh yeah. And then you do it again, if need be. That's the process. This is the encouragement of the Buddha. Jayati bhikkhave. Do this, absorb. And of course we can go into the history of the dialogues and debates over jhana, but another time, if necessary. Sometimes you just you get sidetracked into debates, and we don't. I don't want to do that. Then taking in. This is cultivation, isn't it? Because we could just bob along in the world of time. 25th of March, 3 days left, then this, and then we better get the Sangha thing going, and and then April I'm doing this, May, June. Yeah, that's true, there's a place for that. I'm not dismissing that, but wait a minute. That's the surface of the stream. We just look at the dazzle and the stuff that's floating on the surface, we're never going to enter it. Underneath that, what are these events about? About sharing, about helping, about creating occasions where people might benefit. We linger in that. I want to be part of that. It's lovely. What else is there to do in life? I want to be part of that. So this is right livelihood. So we look at in monastic life, you think, livelihood, that's people going out and making some money. No. No, this is for everybody. Why is it right livelihood? Because it makes you really alive. You see through the surface and you drink in. This is beneficial. This is helpful. This is ask me to be patient. Sometimes things we do are not that agreeable, but we say, okay, this needs to be done. Then I'll use it to develop patience and resolve. So look to how you can glean goodness from whatever you do. Yeah. So sometimes often I do things, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in being in that kind of humble, open beginner's state because it keeps me fresh and alive, and I've got to learn. I can't just glide. I can't just say, oh, you do it for me, which people generally would be helpful to do. I want to actually go into a process and get myself to open up and listen and attune and be humbled and learn something new. And if we're not prepared to be humbled, then we're never going to, develop. If you're not prepared to enter things you're not quite clear about, but take your integrity with you, it's never going to get strong. Take your resolve, your integrity with you, and then okay, that's right livelihood. Yeah. So, since I've certainly been a bhikkhu, I've kind of come out of university, got a literature degree. Yeah. So you kind of have to learn things like computers, you have to learn things like plants, masonry, communications, talks, things like that. You've no instruction, just get in there and learn it. And, but that is then there's a sense of something, carrying in that chanda mulaka, the root of interest, and then being shaped. Your attention just can't be kind of fixated. It's got to be able to flex. And again, to my mind, another thing to consider, and again ask you just to work it out for yourself, with attention, both the topic, also the modality of it. And so often we take the word concentration, the attention is sort of like fixed on a point. If we just use that word, an English word. But that's a fixation of attention, it's not unification of heart, which is prior to that. And when you have a one-pointed heart to stay with something, you recognize it changes. It's moving. We're in real living time. Things move and change. Your attention has to be able to shift, to adopt and focus around change. This is called mindfulness. It's different from attention. It's attention to change, which means there's a certain ability to keep receptive to what's going on and adjust. Adjust the intensity, adjust the scope, and yet you're still one-pointed on the aim. And these are called the sampajanas, correct aim, suitable, correct relevance, in respect to, context, and a sense of non-delusion. So that is kind of flexing. Now if we focus on our attention is towards mindfulness of breathing, you recognize what breathing is. It is nothing but change. It never, if it stops, you're dead. So it's always sort of moving, shifting, and you feel your body starts to expand, and it moves from kind of a flushing in the abdomen and the diaphragm and in the chest, so you get some sense in the throat, and then the back of the head and the nostrils, and you get this kind of sense of something living being moving through this form. And as we give mindfulness of that, you begin to get, without changing anything apart from just staying with something dynamic, you begin to sense that the body itself isn't what we often see it as, a kind of fixed lump, but actually a constant changing flux of energies and feelings and heat and cool and solidities and vibrations and movement. And it's a dynamic of many factors merging and beautifully synthesizing. Yeah? And you linger in that, and eventually you learn how to attend, rather like in water. It's not solid, it's not simple, it's many-currented, and you stay balanced within that. And you also, so there's your sense of your one-pointedness, and receptivity. Mindfulness also has the ability to both hold a boundary, but receive what's within that boundary. So my boundary is on the body, my citta is listening into what occurs to that, within that, and I take it in. Yeah? And it's flowing, so if it's flowing, it means we're not going to get stuck. Yeah? And if we've entered with that mind that's attuned to the beautiful, the uplifting, the kalyana, then we can also pick up, a heart that, this is free, easeful, beautiful. Our mind has already shrugged off, bitterness, doubt, resentment, grudges, inadequacy, because in our process of entering into the whole territory of the stream, we've already prepared ourselves to attend to the kalyana dhamma, the uplifting, the admirable. So in the sila, the right view, the companionship, the right livelihood, the right speech, they've all done they've laid the groundwork for what the heart is focused on. And as we know, where the heart goes is where your attention goes. So, as a very obvious example, you can be walking along and really your heart's somewhere else. Particularly, this is of course the famous incidents of the scientists like Niels Bohr, who was this brilliant quantum mechanics. They didn't let him cross the road because he would just be so in his head thinking about mysteries of quantum, he's likely to get run over. So he'd always have somebody to make sure because he was so unaware where his body was. So certainly because his heart was completely absorbed in quantum mechanics. So where your heart goes, where your attention goes. Chandamulaka, heart is where the interest is. So if our heart's in the beautiful, your attention goes to it, and you begin to see refined, subtle aspects of the beautiful as it manifests in terms of a body that's relaxed and comfortable and easily, because the breathing has, if it's held carefully, if the body's prepared for it, is a natural and well-known emotional effect to it. It soothes, it brightens. So we've already begun work on dismantling the hindrances in our primary modes of attention and our primary modes of action and our primary modes of livelihood and even our speech. And then we continue that to looking into the kind of residues and the latent tendencies to get impatient or distracted or fantasize or get stuck in some kind of thought pattern, which are very powerful. Of course, not everything in the heart is beautiful. This is where you need the strengthening effect, and that sense of the one-pointedness, if it's constantly returned to, you have the process of cause and effect and sankharas. So the sankharas have been strengthened to go in a particular way. They have the ability to resist, to not go off track. And you train it in the day to We're track creatures. You work on that. You stay on track. And as that track, you walk up and down it many times. It becomes deeper and deeper and deeper till it becomes less easy to go off track. So it's a bit late to start doing that when you sit down and focus on breathing in and breathing out. You should do it before then, because this is subtle territory when all kinds of very intimate and perhaps traumatic or deeply disturbing material can suddenly arise from the basement of the heart. It's sadness or it's feeling of a betrayal or wounds. So you have to have the strength to stay on track, and not just to kind of dismiss these hindrances, but to release them, which is a multiple, manifold approach, which you've got to learn. Some things need to be just carefully refrained from, some things need to be soothed, some things need antidotes, loving kindness, some things need to be forgiven, some things, so there are developed, just developing strength. And we look in the Sabhasava Sutta, for example, you see the Buddha outlines at least 7 different approaches to phenomena as they arise. Clearly this is another big topic, put that to one side. But essentially, we recognise this experience. It requires quite a lot of careful activity. Lingering is one of them. It's an activity to just check the running on of the mind. That's definitely an inclination. Investigating, and then the refined activity is how we meet the challenge of hindrance, of obstacle. As you learn refined, subtle heart activity, and it makes the heart pretty wise and resolute. Not just push the button, do this, get the samadhi. No, you've got to do some resolute, careful meeting and attending to what arises. Stepping back, that's an object, it's not self. It's not me being mistreated, it's a sense of pain. It's not why doesn't everybody do it my way, it's a sense of dissonance. There's that. How do you meet the sense of feeling you're the odd one out? Is anybody here not the odd one out? You can find various ways in which you're the odd one out. We share that experience. So that sense, there's nothing wrong with me, I can't make it, because I've got this, or not enough of that, or I've never, So you can believe in this, make an identity out of it. Or you can say it's an object, dissonant, feeling estranged. What's needed? What's needed? Breathing in, energy flowing through, it never leaves you, it's always comforting, it never leaves you. Purity of heart you don't have to lose purity of heart. So you find a place of stability. What you do belong to, what never leaves you, doesn't have to be held on to, deserved or earned. It's here. Stay there. And then what's needed now? Perhaps just some dispassion, compassion, space, breathing. Throw some words around, it's not going to do it, but your heart begins to learn the particular adjustments and modalities. And it's extremely skillful feature, the heart. It's not just the kind of flush of emotion, it's a very sensitive intelligence. Yeah. And you can sense it. Sometimes I like to listen to people's voice tones, and you hear that voice tone is measured, calm. Obviously the person's trying to present something helpfully. There's a good heart there. The information, but the voice tone, the presentation, modality, there's a good heart there. And you can listen to it, externally, internally. And so there's plenty of, then you see, so your samadhi isn't just something that's exclusively internal. It's a field. You see, we tend to kind of be a bit sort of stuck in this view that the eyes give us. We're separate lumps in a space. And therefore, the me lump is all contained inside this little bag here. Well, what's that memory of your father doing? Where's that in your bag? Oh no, that's in my mind. Where's your mind then? Where's your heart? Now it's in Thailand. Now it's in 15 years ago. Now it's in Ajahn Sumedho's smile. Now it's in, is it inside this bag? Are you actually living inside this bag? So that, but we're telling, oh yeah, you're right. But all that's kind of happening inside my head or my... When you listen to the radio, do you think of those people inside that little box? Got a football team in there, and or is it just that there's the receptor? You're receiving, a whole dimension of experience that can't be located in space and time. You could say it's located in the sensory realm, but more often it's located in the perceptual realm. The things that have moved me, touched me, delighted me, frightened me. The realm of perception and feeling. Is that internal or external? Finally, that reference doesn't count. It's useful sometimes, and sometimes you see, no, it becomes a limitation. You tune into the field, and then you tune into the field. Oh, there's somewhere in there. There's the perceptions based upon the Buddha, or the noble ones, whatever. So you enter that field. And this certainly helps to remove this feeling of isolation or me and I'm not what I did and didn't do. And that's part of it. But look at the broad field, and all those kind of little snags and ripples sort of start to become less intense. And you smooth them out. This is the quality of the field that I'm tuning into, is purity and generosity and straightforwardness. We'll start straightening now. Past is past, events have gone, results are here. Let's just smooth out those ripples, listening to them. The regret and that's it. See, for samadhi occurs in the realm of perception and feeling. We could say we're focused within the body as a receptor, because it resonates with those feelings. So when you get the resonance, it helps you to get the firmness of it. The body acts as a kind of firming up medium. Because as you know, the citta fluctuate faster than a butterfly's wings. Okay, and then use that steadiness of the body, and then you, based upon that, you get the firming effect. Then you capture or you trawl the field for the resonance. And then you stay. Then you're breathing in, breathing out, as it does its work on clearing regret, domestic circumstances, craving. So it's the field of perceptions that clears. It's not a person who clears themselves of blemishes. It's the perceptual field that deals with the dissonances of karma. We take the person out of it. When it's isolation, and its obsessiveness, and its self-critical, and its narrowness, we widen. Mm-hmm. So then, it's cultivation. Obviously, this is extremely therapeutic in many ways. To actually enter into something that's got a buoyant, picks you up, sustains you. And also, but then also it gives you another view. Oh, this sense of being an individual entity is only relevant in certain areas. Not irrelevant, but it's of some relevance, but it's not. It's just one turn of the switch. And actually, we're more useful, well, take yourself, is to have another perspective where the sense of the individual entity is kind of stepped out of, or resolved, or however you want to put it. And so I don't seem so important anymore, or so judged anymore, or so much of an issue anymore. In fact, I feel extremely grateful to have a rich perceptual field. Yes. That's arisen to my heart. Yeah. And then you have the firm kind of basis, the strengths, the understanding, the discernment, the reference points. Then you a sense of then feeling disenchantment. I'm not interested in this isolated, worldly ways of who's better, competition, fighting, judging, da-da-da-da-da. Just, who wants to be in this stuff? Turning away. And then the realization of the impersonal nature of all this flood and flow. And then what the wrong view is no longer being instigated. When there's no wrong view, there's no wrong effort, there's no wrong mindfulness, there's no wrong understanding. Enlightenment, awakening is the removal of the confusion around that. And much more can be said on that, I'm sure. But I won't go into that, because today is enough for today. Take your time. If anything's been useful in this, pick it up, consider it, cast your own light on the process of Samadhi.